You may know that tomorrow there's going to be a big demo for Path of Fire where we can play all of the PvE stuff. What still won't be available are the elite specializations, which will come on a later playtest for people, but I have had the lucky fortune of being able to play both. Now, I've mentioned to you guys that when I was having a look at the elite specializations, I did a bit of digging through the UI, and from that I found some pretty revealing information that does confirm stuff that otherwise we only would have known about because of leaks. It's pretty exciting. Some suggestion at regions that the expansion will take us to. Nothing majorly spoilery, but also some very cool improvements on the way they've handled elite specializations for the next expansion that I wanted to talk to you guys about. So let's do it. So first, I just kind of wanted to broadly geek out about what they've done with the elite specializations in Path of Fire as opposed to the Generation 1 elite specializations that came in Heart of Thorns. Because as great as elite specializations have been for giving us new interesting things to do on our classes, the system had two big problems. One was their acquisition process and it being used as a progression system rather than just, hey, give me all my stuff straight away so I can go and fight things, and a little bit of lack of clarity from the devs on that. But the other big problem I think many of us had in Heart of Thorns, and particularly when I produced a big review of Heart of Thorns, I talked a lot about this. One of the big problems we've had was the lore based on those elite specializations. And that might sound like kind of a foolish thing to say, or something I only care about because I give a damn about the story in this game, and many of us don't. But I think it goes deeper than that. When I'm in a new expansion and I'm taking my existing character who's learning these new things, I want good, real, justifiable reasons as for why I've got access to new stuff, and I want them to take any opportunity they can to expand the world and tell a little bit of story. Heart of Thorns was an expansion produced in a crunch, and it is so obvious that a huge amount of the flavor and intrigue behind elite specializations just got completely ignored, and it was very much for the worse. Let's look at some of those elite specializations and what the expansion was. In Heart of Thorns, we got the Scrapper, which is an engineer specialization that turns you into a big hammer-wielding gyro guy. Now, as far as the game itself is concerned, they really don't tell you much more than that. But as we were rolling into Heart of Thorns, the devs explained there was a little bit of story behind this, and they did say that the Scrapper elite specialization was related to the Char warband concept. So this was some established stuff to do with the Char in the Iron Legion homelands. I'll read straight from Wiki on what this lore was. You couldn't exactly get access or real relevant access to this where it counted in game. It was more of a developer quote that happened outside. But so Scrapper is a term used to refer to a warband undergoing punishment duties, usually assigned by the commanding centurion. A Scrapper warband is commonly tasked with duties such as menial labor, salvaging, which is what our elite specialization kind of keyed into, or otherwise tasks which are below the assignment of a normal warband. While Scrapper is commonly a temporary position a warband endures, it can also be permanently applied as a label for any warband which is consistently insubordinate, unreliable, or troublesome, like Ritlock, maybe. These warbands are low within Char society and are commonly given little respect. Alright, not so much like Ritlock there. While a Gladium may be regarded as one without honor and sometimes looked upon with pity, a Char known as a Scrapper is seen as an untrustworthy troublemaker. So in Heart of Thorns, we have the elite specialization Scrapper that has some roots in lore, but neither is that given to us well enough. But nor is it really relevant to the expansion itself. What does this have to do with us patrolling into the jungle to fight Morgemoth and the efforts of the Pact therein? If you think this is all too arbitrary, let's look at a much bigger outlier, the Chronomancer. Heart of Thorns gave us a time travel spec, or a time travel related spec. We don't have to dive into specifically how Chronomancer magic works here. And that's great, but again, the question is, why is the Chronomancer relevant to a story where we go into the jungle and we fight an Elder Dragon? Just about the only one that seems to pair up very well at all is one of the ones that the devs were confident to talk to us about on stage at PAX South when they first revealed the initial expansion to us, and that's the Druid. Because yes, the Druid does seem to be very much related to the lore faction of Druids that were humans from Kryta that went to the Maguma jungle and then disappeared as they transcended and became one with the jungle. So that worked, but most of it didn't. And so now turning our attention to Path of Fire, this is where X-Pack 2 has really caught my attention because it seems very real lessons have been learned. And this comes from the developers' own mouths in various interviews that they've gone with. They have tried much more carefully to tie the theme of the environment with the actual elite specializations this time and give those factions real lore and presence. So, first of all, just top level, each elite specialization now actually makes sense for where we're going. Mesmer doesn't get the seemingly totally unrelated Chronomancer, it gets the Mirage, which is thematically beautifully tied with the desert. We have the warriors becoming Spellbreakers, who are tied to the descendants of the Sun Spears from this region of the world. The Scourge is a necromancer who, for lack of a better description, plays with sand. They have their sand shroud, and you look at the coloration of their new profession meter and the various themes and tooltips and names that they've got associated with that. And through all of them, they found some reasonable tie. But then on top of that, they've done something Heart of Thorns never managed to, and that's that there's real lore in the world and at towns and on various characters that represent those orders. You guys may have already seen this. In the demo, you can interact with a member of the Mirages who tells you a little bit about that magic and why they use an axe and gives people those details they may not have otherwise got. Another example on top of this of the devs having more time to give us real elite specialization lore that very much excites me is what they've just done in the recent patch with Revenant. Revenant's now genuinely having conversations with their legends. Supposedly this was something they did manage to get in for Heart of Thorns, but they just never hooked it up for some reason, and now they've remedied that. Well, we're gonna get that from the start of the expansion now going forward. Imagine playing a Char Revenant who is unlocking and channeling the Renegade spec, and we actually get to talk to her a little bit as we visit these new environs. These are all massive pluses on what Heart of Thorns did. So lastly, what really got me sitting up was when I got to play these elite specializations and check out the collections associated with them. So what I'm talking about here, guys, is when you get your elite specialization, each one has a special weapon that they'll get associated with them, but it requires you to go on a quest where you complete a bunch of different tasks around the expansion. For Heart of Thorns, these were really boring. I mean, the ultimate skins we got at the end were great. I love the Reaper Greatsword, I love the Engineer's Hammer, I loved many of the skins we got. But the actual things we were asked to do were just copy-paste filler that, again, had no real relevance to anything. Okay, go get a Mystic Forge weapon, which has existed from 2012. Buy random inscriptions and things for map currency from vendors. None of this stuff was that great. And I think the worst one of all was the stealth gliding. Ooh, glide and press your spacebar when you're on each elite specialization to make progress on that collection. This stuff was crap, and it didn't really give us any flavor, and it had clearly been forced in at the last minute. So here today, I want to show you guys a little bit of what I snooped around on when I was playing the new specs from Path of Fire. I'm not sure whether this information's really been released to the community through someone else at this point, but I found it all very fascinating because not only can we see lots of improvements, but lots of fun stuff too. So here you'll notice I'm playing on my Spellbreaker. I've just had a look at the old warrior berserker weapon, which was Wild Abandon, and here I'm mousing over the North Wind, which was the Tempest's old Warhorn. But you'll notice we've got a ton of new ones here as well. We've got Silence of 1,000 Years, which is the new warrior one. It's a dagger. We've got Warp Blade. We've got the Guide for the Lost. So these are the three that I had unlocked. You'll notice immediately they've got different cooler icons. Each icon represents the elite specialization it belongs to, as opposed to a generic Heart of Thornsy looking icon for all of the other ones. And so yeah, the special weapon that the Weaver gets is called Warp Blade, and I'll scroll in here just for a moment. The Warp Blade looks beautiful. All of these chat codes are in game now, so you guys can check them out if you like. And I think I'll mouse over a couple of things. So it starts with us having to get the Weaver's Sword, which is, you know, right when you first put your first points into Weaver and you unlock it, you're going to get that sword and that skin for yourself, and it will trigger you on your quest. That's the same as what we saw with Heart of Thorns. But as we move forward already, you'll see things are a little bit different. We have the Pyre Gall, okay? And it says, hint, consume this item that drops from Hydras in the Crystal Desert. I believe Heart of Thorns did have similar things to this. You had to kill a specific enemy. So for the Tempest, which was very storm-based, you'd have to kill like dust mites, which I guess were storm-based vaguely. Here we're being asked to kill Hydras for the Weaver. Weaver is very much about mixing multiple attunements. If you look very closely at trailers for this expansion, you'll notice that some of these Hydras have multiple different attuned heads, and I think that's kind of what they're going for with why the Weaver is being asked to kill Hydras. Moving on, we get this very exciting item here. Mostly this is just going to be me geeking out on stuff here. We get the Jin's Royal Ceremonial Ring. So this is purchased from Distinguished Professor Nazimi at the Vitendi Academy in the domain of Vabi. So yes, it was leaked a while ago that this expansion would take us to Vabi. And the demo that actually we're going to be playing on this weekend doesn't necessarily show Vabi. And the Vitendi Academy as well returns for the expansion. We've got some distinguished professor. Maybe he's a heart vendor or something. But interestingly here, you'll notice as well, we're getting a new stat combo here. It's not Grievers. I think this is the same combo that appears on Spellbreaker, which is kind of funny. I don't know what the name of it is. But yeah, it's a ring. And what you'll slowly acquire as you are on your quest to get this super cool sword is, I think, all of your trinkets, which is kind of nice, and they're all of exotic quality. So we got that. Next we have the Wish for Harmony. We can double click it to gain a moderate amount of karma when we consume it. It says, as a weaver, we need to use a mystic coin in the wishing well at the Garden of Subreddit. Oh, it's so exciting. So people aren't going to like that there's a mystic coin sink there, but I love the thought of having to throw a little coin in there. And we do get to return to the Garden of Subreddit. There's going to be a well there. Oh my gosh. Maybe I should do more to teach you guys about these locations. But here you'll see these are already quite flavorful, already quite different to what we were seeing with Heart of Thorns. Which was mostly miss with what it did. So I only look at a couple of the Weaver ones. I apologize, I can't go back and mouse over absolutely everything. Here we've got the Guide for the Lost, but let's have a look at Silence of 1,000 Years. So on this specific collection, I do mouse over a lot more. So collect these 14 items and skins to receive the Spellbreaker's Dagger, Silence of 1,000 Years. So remember, the whole idea of the Spellbreaker is it's all anti-magic, it's like meditation, and it's being calm, and it's, you know, clarity. And so I like the name of their weapon immediately. Here we got Derek's Quick End, again, the same stats we were looking at a second ago. The skin on that is called the Sunspear Carver. So a nice little reference to the Sun Spears there already. That was my first experience of hearing about the Sun Spears in this expansion. And I did a video earlier in the week talking about this system. You'll see down there, hint, found when identifying gear. Or you can purchase it straight from the Black Lion trading post. So I already talked about the gear identification system. This is one of those special RNG things that can come out while you're identifying if you choose not to just instantly salvage everything down. Now, if you don't like the idea of the RNG, they will be available on the TP. And I like that the flavor text explains that at the same time. So I think that's very, very cool. Next, it asks us to actually get the recipe to craft runes for this class. So if you remember in Heart of Thorns, they asked us to get sort of inscriptions, shall we say, but they weren't properly, they didn't really do anything. Well, this time we're going to be asked to find the recipe to make the runes for ourselves. And to do this, we get Second Spear Nayrim to shelter in the salt flats of the desert highlands. So I guess that's going to be some kind of an escort quest that we have to participate in. Once we get the characters to the end, they will sell us this specific item, a bit like, say, buying fire elemental powder in the core game at the moment. Also, Second Spear, it looks like the rankings of Sun Spears is preserved, and that seems like there are still freestanding Sun Spears, which is a little bit contrary to what the Movement of the World said many years ago, but that's still very exciting. So we got the Spellbreaker. Moving on, we have the Trophy of the Champion Spellbreaker. And the hint for this is that we have to complete a race event in any Crystal Desert map as a warrior. So this may be quite similar to what Heart of Thorns did, where we have to press space while gliding. But this also suggests to us that there are many different race events. You guys have seen the one from the demo and around the Amduna races, but it looks like they're going to be doing that a lot in the expansion. Next, we got a threat report, magical dead zones. So when we double click this, we get a ton of mastery experience as well as we consume it. The hint is to purchase from Keeper Pamir at Torment's Watch in the Desolation. So this sounds like some kind of outpost that overlooks the Mouth of Torment as it existed 250 years ago, and we'll see a little bit of what's going on there. We have a Mordant Crescent Pommel. So now here's a little bit of more interesting stuff with the lore again. Remember, the Spellbreakers are the descendants of the Sun Spears, but we also know many Sun Spears have sort of been corrupted and turned into the Mordant Crescent by Palawa Joko. So we actually acquire this Pommel as a part of the quest as we build our Spellbreaker up. It says that it drops from Awakened Occultist Bounty Target in the Desert Highlands. So here, the Desert Highlands, I believe, is probably the map north of the opening map in the game, and we have confirmation there that there are more bounties there, and that specifically one of them is an undead boss. Next, we've got the Wish for Fortitude, gives us karma when we consume it. As a Spellbreaker, use a Mystic Coin in the Wishing Well in the Garden of Saborin. Next, we've got the Stone of Silence. Again, more trinket. This is equivalent to what we were looking at with Weaver earlier. We're going to get this from Follower Zun near Augury Rock in the Ellen Riverlands. Augury Rock being obviously a very exciting location in the expansion. And lastly, I think this is the last one that I look at here, guys. The Tar-Bound Spellbook. So we're going to consume this item that drops from the Awakened in the Crystal Deserts. And so I actually mouse over this one as well. This is the Riddle of the Spellbreaker. It's got the flavor text. It's an accessory. It's got the flavor text that says, amidst the mighty cries of dragons, silence is deafening. And the hint is to explore the Yana Plateau in the domain of Vabi with our jackal. So that sounds like completing one of the jumping puzzle type areas with the last mount in the game, actually. And this is like the teleportation mount. So there you go, guys. I did have a lot of fun mousing over that stuff. That's basically all the information I've got for you. I did want to share it. I do also mouse over the runes for the Spellbreakers here. I've talked about these before. Power, precision, and 7% more damage to foes that have no boons. And the skin is called the Spellbreakers Redoubt. So there you go, guys. That is a little bit more on the UI. That was something I was digging around on that I wonder whether the devs really wanted us to be digging around on, because it's information about the deeper areas of exploration in the desert. But I thought, hey, while I've got it here, I will be more than happy to share it with you. And as I said at the start of this video, I think that the elite specializations for X-Pac 2 look like they've had a lot more work go into them to make them feel like more interesting parts of the world and giving that information to us in a better way. It certainly looks less lazy than what they did with Heart of Thorns, I'll tell you that much. So thanks, guys. Let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you tomorrow for the demo. Catch you next time, guys.